Hello, this is Lisa Doherty, and this is my presentation on understanding students with disabilities. Enjoyed learning in this course about the different issues and events in special education. I was a special education para for 15 years, and I wasn't aware of all these issues and important details of students with disabilities. It will make me a better teacher so I can help each student be successful even if they have a disability or if they don't. The first one of the 10 that we discussed in the class is understanding students with learning disabilities. They usually will have low academic achievement and struggle in one or more areas, and sometimes they can have more than one disability as well. They struggle on how they learn and process information. It may take them longer to learn a new task because of their learning disability. They have a very hard time of setting goals. They may set goals that are really too low for them or high, and usually it'll take an adult to teach them how to set a goal that is appropriate for them. Also, they'll struggle interacting with their peers because of their disability. A way that we can differentiate their instruction is to give them advanced organizers that can help them learn the new task to relate it back to the previous background in that subject area. And it's also very important to model and demonstrate how a certain task should be done to show them and teach them a correct way to count change, and then they'll be able to process that a little easier. The next one we talked about was students with communication disorders. These students usually struggle to pay attention. They also get very frustrated because of this, that they aren't able to communicate with their peers and adults, so then it's hard for them to get their point across, and so then they get frustrated. It is also very hard for them to process things that involve memory skills, and they also have a very hard time following directions and expressing their feelings because of this. They are unable to conversate with others. It is hard for them to sit down with an adult or a peer and have a real conversation because of their communication issues. It is important to have different formats for them to learn, and it's also important to show them and model the correct things that they want to learn. It is one way to do this is to use graphic organizers, and this can help them have an organizer based on math, and it can keep them organized, and then they can relate back to that organizer if they have any questions about a certain topic. It also is important to have different ways of just having written reports. They should be able to do a video, like a Flipgrid video, to discuss a topic. They need to have easy to do steps, and it's important to give them time to process those steps and to help them learn the best way. Switches with students with communication disorders are great because it can give them the ability to push a switch to tell us yes. It's also important that they could be able to tell you their food choices. For example, I had a student who couldn't communicate, but she would push a button that was for more, and she would push a different button that would tell us no more, and then we would know that she didn't need help being fed that certain food. Students with emotional and behavior disorders was the next one I was going to talk about, and they can have possible low IQs, but they can also have average IQs, and it can even be gifted. Usually they have a lack of motivation because of their disorder. It is hard for them to stay motivated onto one task, and if they struggle with that task, for example, math, they may shut down and not want to stay motivated to keep learning. It is also very, very, very common for them to be disruptive and defiant in the classroom because of their behavior issues. And they struggle with being able to say how they're truly feeling. They won't be able to express their positive emotions or their negative emotions, and this can lead to outbursts in the classroom. A way that we can help that is to have technology in the classroom for all students, so that way they can keep track of their behavior for the behavior students. And it's also important to have maybe a chart for the younger students like kindergarten, that everyone has a chart so they don't feel secluded from their peers. It is also important to give them input in their decision making as well. And also another thing is to give them a separate location where they can calm down and kind of just collect their energy, and then when they're ready to come back to the classroom, they can. The next one is about understanding students with ADHD. This is one that I have experience with because of my husband. Students with ADHD will have some struggles achieving what they want to academically. They can have memory issues because of their hyperactivity, and also if they have inattentive issues. And this can lead to their language development being lower than their peers because they're so wired that they're unable to focus in class, and as they get older, it's harder for them to get those skills. They really struggle with organization and being able to stay on task. They may get up and go all over the room, and they're not able to focus on the math problems and finish them. They see and hear everything around the classroom, so it's very important to have structure within the classroom. They have a hard time communicating with peers and adults because they think so far ahead and they're all over that they really struggle with having a real conversation without getting distracted. Some of the things that I think teachers could do to differentiate instruction is to always have a visual of the product and always model constant practice within a certain topic area. If you want them to say their ABCs, say the ABCs with them, and then also have them repeat it back to you. It is very important to get them organized in some way, set a certain time for them to clean out their desk, have them clean out their cubbies, organize their notebooks on a consistent basis, and also it's important to have them in quiet areas around peers that model correct behavior. Students with intellectual disabilities usually will have a lower IQ, and they will also struggle with their memory because of their IQ issues. They struggle with certain skills that they learn at home. They may not remember when they go to school, and so they're not able to take those skills back and forth between two different locations. They also have a hard time problem solving and being able to finish a task because of that. They also have a hard time learning social cues from their peers. They're not able to process why somebody's sad, what they should do if somebody's sad. They don't know the correct way to say, oh, I'm sorry you're sad. They don't process that part of it. They have an extremely hard time staying motivated, pretty much. They will be so dependent on their adults in the classroom sometimes that they don't want to do the task because it's easier to have the adult help them. I was a para for a girl that had an intellectual disability, and she depended on me way too much. So the best way to help with this is help them learn some independence, teach them how to tie their shoe, teach them how to have some life skills, and how to take care of themselves, personal hygiene. It's also very important to use e-readers, which will help them with their reading skills, something they can have as an iPad that they can sit down and learn tasks that way. I believe switches would be appropriate for them to use as well because it could help them communicate their feelings better, and this could definitely make them feel more successful if they're able to use a switch instead of just trying to tell you how they feel. Students with autism. Students with autism usually will have some issues with their speech comprehension. They have a hard time doing multiple steps and problem solving because of the multiple steps. They will shut down sometimes if they have more than 2 steps. They can be extremely talented in some areas. For example, they could be exceptional in arts and music because of their success. They can struggle maintaining relationships and keeping close friendships with others because of their communication issues as well. It's important to teach them self-directed strategies, how to do things step by step, and also model those steps with them. It's also important to teach them social stories, like what to do in the case of somebody has gotten their feelings hurt, or you need to teach them how to share with others. It's important to have a social story to go with that can help them process the new information. It's also very important to have repetition and to summarize the information with them as well. A separate location is always beneficial because if a student is getting disruptive or having a hard time focusing on a task, sometimes they will be able to be more successful in a different location in the room so they can go over there and work on their assignments or work on their homework, and they can just get away from the class to focus on whatever task they need to accomplish. Students with traumatic brain injuries. Will have issues concerning fine motor skills and coordination problems. They also have a hard time processing and communicating how they feel, their positive and negative feelings. And basically their communication skills and how hard it is for them to communicate depends on the extent of their injury. If they have a very severe injury, they will not be able to communicate very well at all. If they have a limited or just basically a small limitation of a brain injury, they're able to process information a little better and communicate those things. They may struggle with their memory and organization skills and staying focused on how to keep organized because they have just different ways of thinking of what is most important. They may not think that a certain task is more important than the other, so they may not be able to process what's the right steps to get the problem solved. They struggle with having friends because they're not able to communicate with their friends as well as their others. They may also feel frustrated because they're not able to do a certain task that they think they should be able to do. It's important to give them oral exams and assignments instead of just a written test. They can also have their notebooks and areas in their classroom organized by colors. That would help them be able to focus. That math should be in red and English should be in green. Students with hearing loss can have language delays and they will also have a hard time communicating. They can have this affect their reading and writing skills. They feel isolated because they feel like they're the only one in the hearing world, non-hearing world. It's important to use multimedia approaches with them and have them do different formats of learning, such as PowerPoints and things they can see visually and tactilely be able to do. The usage of smart boards and document cameras would be great for them to use so they can see it up on the whiteboard and be able to process the information better. Pre-teaching vocab is another great way to have them learn the vocab before their peers, and then that way when you present the information, they will be more successful. Students with visual impairments struggle being able to see and process the information. They can struggle with socially because they're unable to learn from their environment. They can feel isolated from others, and this can lead to depression. It's important to have different activities that they can be successful in, and the teacher should always be descriptive in their words and describe what's being written on the board. Oral assignments should also be given instead of just test and assignments. Gifted students struggle with basically just feeling like they need to be perfect. They have high education, intelligence, and excel in certain arts. teachers